obandes. They wandered off the marked trail into a beech forest that seemed peaceful at first. Then they noticed the sounds, animal-like, moving parallel to them through the trees. They tried to retrace their steps. Every direction led back to where they started. As darkness fell, they found a rundown cabin and sheltered there. The sounds continued all night. Figures glimpsed through the window, circling, never approaching, never leaving. In the morning, what they found inside the cabin explained why. Don't wander off any marked trail tonight. It is time for chapter 181. Some forests hold their visitors more carefully than others. Most travelers who step off a marked trail simply retrace their steps without difficulty, the forest, whatever its beauty, remaining an ordinary collection of trees and paths that respond to ordinary navigation. But occasionally, a forest has a different relationship with those who enter it uninvited. A beech forest, ancient enough that its oldest trees predate any human record of the region, holding a particular quality that most visitors never test, because most visitors stay on the marked trail. This couple did not. A young Japanese couple, traveling abroad decades ago, had been staying near a region known for its ancient forests. They had taken the marked trail initially, a popular route through beech woodland, well-maintained, clearly signed. Partway through, drawn by the particular beauty of an unmarked side path, dappled light, the smooth gray bark of trees considerably older than the marked route's younger growth, they left the established trail, walked for perhaps 20 minutes before noticing the sound, not clearly identifiable. Something between an animal call and something else entirely, a quality to it that made them both stop walking and listen. It seemed to move parallel to their position, always at the same rough distance, always just beyond where they could see clearly through the trees. They decided, after some discussion, to return to the marked trail. The beauty of the unmarked path no longer felt worth the particular unease the sound produced. They retraced what they were certain was their route, walked for what felt like the same 20 minutes, arrived back at the point where they had first left the marked trail. Confused, they tried again, more carefully this time, certain they had simply misjudged a turn. The same result. The sound continued throughout, parallel, patient, never closing the distance, never fully identifiable, despite the couple's growing certainty that whatever produced it was aware of exactly where they were at every moment. If these stories have found their way to you, if you find yourself returning to this quiet room, there is something small you can do. Like and subscribe. It tells me, and whatever else watches from this room, that you were here and that you intend to find your way back. If you have a story of your own, Granny is always listening, watching, waiting. They tried a third direction as the light began shifting toward evening, deliberately choosing a path that felt, by simple geographic logic, like it should lead away from their starting point rather than back toward it. Walked considerably longer than their previous attempts. the forest around them changed in subtle ways. Older trees, the canopy denser, the particular quality of undergrowth suggesting they had moved into a section of the woodland considerably less traveled than where they had begun. They found the cabin as the light was failing entirely. Small, old, clearly abandoned for a considerable period, though structurally sound enough to offer real shelter from what was becoming a genuinely dark and disorienting forest night. The sound had not stopped. Shak Koi, the cabin door's old latch beneath the husband's hand, cold in a way the evening air alone did not explain. I wonder if you found yourself unable to leave a forest by any direction you tried, and darkness was falling with something circling just beyond sight. Would you shelter in an unfamiliar cabin, or keep trying to find your way out? If you have a story of your own, this quiet room has space for your experiences too. Granny is always listening. They chose the cabin, reasonable given the alternative of continuing to navigate an unfamiliar and apparently uncooperative forest in full darkness with something circling nearby. The cabin's interior was sparse, a single room, old furniture, the particular dust of long abandonment. They settled in as best they could, taking turns through the night to remain alert. The sound continued outside throughout, circling, they were both certain, at a consistent distance from the cabin's walls. Through the single window, on several occasions, one or the other caught glimpses of movement between the trees, shapes, upright, too tall and too still to be the animal the sound suggested, visible for a moment in what little moonlight reached the clearing before withdrawing back into darkness. Neither of them slept more than a few exhausted minutes at a time. Both were certain by morning that whatever produced the sound, and whatever the figures glimpsed through the window actually were, had circled the cabin without pause for the entire night. You are still here. Good. Some stories need a witness all the way to the end. I wonder if you glimpsed tall, still figures through a window all night, moving just at the edge of the moonlight. How many glimpses before you stopped looking? Morning light revealed what the darkness had hidden. Carved into the cabin's interior walls, extensive, covering nearly every reachable surface, were names, dates, some in languages they could partially recognize, others in scripts entirely unfamiliar. Dozens of entries, some clearly quite old, others more recent than seemed possible given the cabin's apparent abandonment. Each entry, where legible, described some version of the same experience, wandering off the marked trail, the parallel sound, the path that led back to its own beginning regardless of direction chosen. The cabin discovered as darkness fell, the figures glimpsed through the window all night, and beneath many of the names, a second date, considerably later than the first. The couple looked at these paired dates for a long time before understanding what they suggested. Not visits of a single night, as they had assumed their own would be, but stays measured in the space between two dates, some spanning years. Da. The forest, it seemed, did not simply circle its cabin. It decided eventually who left it. I think about forests that test whoever wanders from their marked paths. Most simply return travelers to safety, whatever brief unease the wandering produced. But this particular beech forest, ancient enough, isolated enough, holding whatever quality allows a path to lead back to its own beginning regardless of direction, appears to operate according to different rules. The cabin, its walls carved with generations of names and paired dates, suggests something considerably more patient than a single night's disorientation. A slow accumulation of those who wandered, who sheltered, who assumed morning would simply return them to the marked trail as easily as they had originally left it, and discovered instead that leaving required something the forest alone determined the terms of. Nda. I do not know how this particular couple's story ended, whether their own names and a second date now join the others carved into that cabin's walls. Some forests keep their own records and their own timelines. Another whispered story from Japan, shared quietly here beside the kotatsu. If you are traveling and you wander off a marked forest trail, particularly into old growth, particularly beech, particularly somewhere the canopy grows dense and the light changes in unfamiliar ways, pay attention immediately to any sound that seems to move parallel to your position. And if you try to retrace your steps and find yourself returning, regardless of direction, to precisely where you started, stop trying new directions once darkness genuinely threatens. Find shelter, if any presents itself. But before you settle in for the night, examine the walls carefully. Look for names, for dates, for any indication of how many others have sheltered there before you, and how the space between their arrival and departure was actually measured. Because if you find paired dates considerably separated, carved by hands as uncertain as your own once were, understand that morning alone will not simply return you to the marked trail. Something else determines that, and it has, judging by the walls, considerable patience for however long that determination takes. If this story stayed with you, if the dark or the shadow feels a little closer tonight, you know where to find me. I am always here beside the kotatsu, watching, waiting. And if you wish others to find their way here too, there is something small you can do. Like and subscribe. I would not object. And if you have a story of your own, this quiet room has space for your experiences too. Granny is always listening.